Welcome back to RotoQL University. This is our advanced DFS strategy course. And today we're going to be looking at advanced slate and game selection. This is Mike and I'm here with Sahil.
How you doing, Mike?
Pretty good, man. A lot of interesting stuff here. Let's get into it. Starting with the lesson overview. First, we're going to go through some of the different player profiles that you can come across and how that is different across game selection. Then we're going to touch on overlays and site fees, the differences between FanDuel and DraftKings and how that can change your game selection. And we'll touch on the different contests we have available within the platforms, both cash games, tournaments, GPPs, and some of the special contests that are offered.
Let's start with the player profiles. This is something we've discussed before, but this really will affect what game selection means to you and what your strategy should be. So, if you're playing DFS as a source of income, we want to go back to our bankroll strategy stuff. Don't want to put more than 8% of your bankroll per night. Have a combination of cash and GPP GPP games. If you want to deposit once, you want to do it 5 to 10%. I think is a reasonable amount to put in play each day, and you kind of want to figure out what games are working for you and choose those as you see fit. And just for fun and games. This is whatever you're comfortable with. I think most people that do this will kind of go across on playing GPPs. Yo, 1 second, I have to cut out. I'll be back in 1 minute.
I tried to touch everything and whatnot. Thanks. Have a good weekend.
You too. Yo, I'm back.
Thanks.
Do you want to just do that again, or?
Yeah, if you don't mind. And if you got to cut out again, it's fine, but just take a pause before you let me know so it's just easier to pause.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, whenever you're ready, I'm good.
Ready to go?
Yep.
Cool. So here, let's talk about player profiles. This is something we've discussed in some of our previous lessons, specifically the bankroll management. This will really affect what your game selection should be. If you're trying to play DFS as a source of income, talk about not playing more than 8% per night. And you'll probably want to have a combination of cash games and GPPs, but obviously pay more attention to what you're better at. And then if you only want to ever have deposit once, you want to kind of go to 5 to 10%, and probably even more focused on what you're better at, whether that's GPPs or cash games. And if you're playing for funding games, you can do kind of whatever you want, but I think most people tend to want to play GPPs since those high prize pools and high dollar winnings you can get kind of make the games more exciting. So for DraftKings and FanDuel, the site fees can go down, are generally around 10%, can go down up to 14%. if you're going into the lower dollar amounts in some of the GPPs. And then on the high end, if you're playing above $500 on DraftKings, it can actually be as low as 6%. FanDuel will be 7%. And then when you get to the really high level games above $1,000, they can still be around 6% too. So there you kind of have to balance difficulty of the competition as you go higher in stakes with lower site fees. And lineup construction is a lot different. So DraftKings, they'll almost always have a utility and flex spot, which allows more decisions to be made. There's a more diverse group of lineups you can choose, obviously, if there's a utility spot. And DraftKings will generally have more top-heavy payouts. So they'll have payouts that will consistently maybe be 25% of the total prize pool to first place in GPPs, whereas FanDuel will generally be a lot flatter. On FanDuel, yeah, there's no utility. There's generally softer salaries. So there's going to be a lot more player overlap, but it's a lot easier to pick a lineup. So FanDuel will definitely have somewhat easier competition because it's easier to make a lineup, whereas DraftKings will be, I think, a little more complicated, but if you make the right decisions, it can really pay off. Another big thing that should affect your game selection is overlay. Overlay happens when the site doesn't have enough entry fees to cover the prize pool amount. So if we take a look at the high heat in this example, you can see that they only have $100 in entry fees from one entry, and the total prizes are $1,000. So even if this will probably fill up a bit more before lock since there's 50 minutes left, but if it ended that way, they would still be obligated to pay out the full $1,000 amount. So what this means is that if you're seeing overlay, which happens generally quite frequently, not as frequently as happened in the past, but still happens, you really want to join those contests. So even if you have, even if you're a losing player and you lose 10% roughly ROI, if you can get into the high heat with a 10% overlay or 15% overlay, you can be a profitable player. So that is one thing that you really want to focus on, playing those games if you can, and maybe you can go a little bit past your bankroll management if you're seeing situations like this. So each sport has a slightly different game selection and competition. NFL, that's where all the sites make their money, and it's going to be the most recreational player pool, meaning that people that aren't really too big into DFS will still dip their toe in every Sunday. What that means is that while it does have the easiest competition, the amount of information that's available in the public with all the fantasy shows, all the tools that we have on RotoQL and on other sources, everyone's going to be somewhat informed, so you're not going to see very, very terrible plays, but you're not going to see as many sharks as a percentage of the total entrants. NBA, MLB, and NHL, I think these are the most competitive. NBA and MLB especially. Once you get past the first 3 months of the season, there's going to be a lot of very good players. So I think that as you adjust your bankroll and game selection, I'd keep that in mind, that as the season progresses, it's going to get even more competitive. Golf and soccer are really fun sports and new, and I think these have some of the best opportunities if you're a new player and you want to focus on a specific sport. I'd say golf and soccer are definitely some of the places you could focus on, because there's not as much public knowledge and about DFS and how to pick the best players, but it's a constant work in progress. So one thing that we want to talk about is 50-50 versus head-to-heads. I think a lot of people think that 50-50s might help reduce your variance, but that's really not the case. In many 50-50s, you're going to have like 7 or 8 of the same players, and it's really an all or nothing. So if you place in the 50th percentile, you're going to roughly break even. But if you place in the bottom 10th percentile, you're going to get $0 back. If you place in the bottom 30th, you're going to get $0 back. Whereas if you're playing in 9 unique head-to-head contests, you're going to win some head-to-heads and lose some head-to-heads. So this is really going to reduce your volatility and maximize your bankroll stability. So I play both because I like to play as much as I can. But if I was starting out, I think I'd try to focus on making sure you can get unique head-to-head contests. On DraftKings, you can do this by selecting, when you create a head-to-head, only allow a person to join your head-to-head once. And that'll allow you to get unique head-to-head contests. But if you want to play both, that's fine. But I think the most important thing is to understand that 50-50s doesn't really reduce your variance, but actually playing 9 head-to-heads or multiple unique head-to-heads will. So here we'll talk about a little bit about number of lineups and how that affects your GPP results. So this chart will show that how the number of lineups will affect your placing percentile. So what we can take away from this is that as you get more lineups, you're going to have a better, higher percentile finish. This shouldn't really come to surprise to anybody, but what it does hammer home is that you can reduce your variance, and if you play GPPs smartly, you can really get top percentile finishes without really sacrificing or gaining too much risk, as long as you have a good strategy when you're putting in multiple lineups. So here let's talk a little bit about some of the other special contests that some sites have offered. So multipliers, I think, are a pretty popular game. So what they'll do is they'll pay between 3 or 5x of the initial buy-in. So you'll have to finish in the top third or top 20%. And some sites even have 10x multipliers. So you have to place in the top 10% roughly to get 10x your buy-in. I would treat the 3x more like a cash game, but the 5x and 10x, I think you want to do a little more GPP lineups. I do think these games have a little softer fields than some of the 50-50s or double-ups, so maybe it's something that you can focus on. Step contests are exclusively on DraftKings now, and what they'll do is allow you to take a $2 buy-in and all the way get that up to 300 in a series of 6 steps. So if you place in the top of a Step 1 contest, you'll move on to Step 2. If you place in the top of a Step 2 contest, you'll go to Step 3, and so on. I think these contests are a pretty good way to build your bankroll. They generally have a weaker competition as well. And then qualifiers. So qualifiers can either be qualifying for a big live final, which I've had the privilege of being there a few times, or just a more higher stakes contests. So qualifiers, so if you put in a $3 entry and you get in the top first out of 50, you may get a $150 entry to a bigger tournament. These will have some of the weakest competition, but I would keep in mind that if you normally wouldn't play a $150 contest, winning a qualifier really shouldn't change that. Qualifiers should be played if you want to get your tickets in for cheaper, but you probably would have played anyways. It's not a good bankroll strategy to play in a $1,000 tournament just because you want a qualifier if your bankroll is $5,000. That will lead to bad bankroll management and can kind of confuse people because they think, oh, I want a qualifier. This is something new or something that I should do a little bit differently. But qualifier should really just be used to try to get tickets in for cheaper, or in the case of qualifiers for live finals, be treated like a GPP entry.
And that's wrapping up our course on advanced game selection for RotoQL University. Hopefully, we have a better idea of the different competitions that are available within the different DFS site operators. Sahil, do you have any final thoughts on game selection in general for the advanced intermediate player looking to scale up?
Yeah, no, I think most of what we covered is making sure you can mitigate your variance, as well as choosing the right type of team for the contest that you're entered in.
Great. Well, you can check out our other advanced DFS strategy courses at RotoQL University. Thanks again, Sahil.